Today's going to be a bit of an experiment, talking about something that's been on my mind a lot lately, sort of a unifying thread of lots of types of teaching that I do. It's connected to what I do in home team, what I do in the youth clients, what I do in my self-command material, and it's about usable intelligence. And I'm calling it usable intelligence because it's something that's about what's practical, what's pragmatic, what is useful to us, in contrast to what we often think of as how intelligence looks, right? I mean, we see it in not only the classrooms, but also in media depictions where intelligence is either having memorized a lot of stuff or being able to do math in our heads quickly. And in practice, neither of those are that useful to us, especially if we're just able to do things but don't, right? I mean, if it's usable, it means we can use it. We're putting it into practice. And so there's a few different points, that maybe 4 or so I'm going to talk to today. And the first of those is seeing usable intelligence as doing things and things getting done. And this is something that as a distinction, there are plenty of folks who I knew who probably had a high IQ, maybe were smarter than I am, but they didn't really do things, right? They didn't apply themselves to do stuff. They either just felt like, well, I can, so that's enough, or no one's asked me to, or I haven't seen the situation to, so nothing got done. At the end of the day, that didn't help them, didn't help others. And so it's recasting as what is intelligence as being productive in some sense. Not necessarily in the making widgets for our bosses way, but just in a way of it's having some sort of impact. It's being put to some sort of use. It's usable. It's being used. I want to see this as well as something where if you need help, to turn to help, and this is one of the ways we get kind of programmed against it in a lot of traditional institutions, it's turning to help that you need, whether it's teammates, whether it's a potential mentor, whether it's basically asking for help and then using that help. This is a gap that so many things, and maybe it's because of the line of work that I'm in where I teach a lot of folks who are kind of self-taught engineers. A lot of what happens is someone might be smart in one sense, if they can solve a lot of puzzles, they can overcome a lot of things independently, but they kind of put themselves in this headspace where they feel like if they go looking for help, it's cheating, which again, the classroom might have taught them. They might feel like if they want to compare their work to what others have done, again, might feel like cheating. If they ask someone else for help, might feel like, well, it's because I gave up on doing it myself. If they ask for someone else to tell them, to instruct them, to teach them, again, they feel like it would somehow be doing something wrong. And at the end of the day, that's massively limiting to what we can only do alone, whereas so many things in the greater world around us that get done that are worth doing are a collaborative effort, involve people reaching out to whoever they've found that has done it before, and ultimately applying that help rather than feeling like somehow that is not the right way to do it. It's recognizing that getting help, finding help, using help is a feature of intelligence. And I want to emphasize out of all this, part of the thing about usable intelligence, what to me makes this worth distinguishing is partly too, that sometimes we picture intelligence as somehow innate, as this trait. I know IQ, at least, and there's lots of problems with IQ, but people discuss it as being kind of intended to be something, I don't know, that like adjusted for age and other stuff. It's supposed to just be this like trait that somebody has. And usable intelligence is something you can develop, right? You can practice. You can practice applying and doing things with which you know. You can practice finding and asking for and using help. That's the thing we can get better at through practice because it's got this kind of social element to it. And another version of this as well is spotting tasks. There's something else that in home team certainly is a normal part of what we do for all of our developers. And it's something that I think in a greater sphere of just navigating my career and life have been so important. And it's where rather than waiting for someone to come to us, telling us what to do, as so often we're able to do in schools or in a lot of work environments where the teacher will give us the right dose of which problems to do, where a boss is going to come to us and tell us which tasks to get done by when. Instead, it's being able to self-manage enough to actually notice, here's a task that needs to be done. I can define that task. And if the task is too big, then I can break that task up into pieces that I can fit in, right? Especially, I know a lot of us have a lot of distractions or a lot of other things competing for attention, a lot of just life stuff to maintain. And so we're working with a few hours here and there scattered throughout the weeks and the months. And it's looking for, can I take a task that needs to get done and do it? Not because I have nothing else going on, not because I'm able to just commit my full mind to it for 48 hours and have no other things competing for my attention, but because I can fit it in productively in these little bits and pieces to chip away at. And it's how all of our games and home team come together. It's how all the longer term youth clients that I work with get things done, build their games. It's by finding a way, can we break this bigger piece down from the project into sort of milestones, from the milestones into weekly tasks, or into even just what can I do with this hour? And that's a skill that we often, again, don't get a lot of practice at because we sort of have the thing going on where, in many cases, instructors, and this is not to discredit, I mean, for foundational skills, you got to do this, but they're kind of doing the thing where the mother bird digests the worm and vomits it into the mouth. They're pre-digesting the information, the tasks for us. And part of the skill we want to practice, get fluency in for usable intelligence is, can I take a thing that I'm capable of doing the component parts of, can't all be done at once, and chop that up into the right size pieces to be able to really do them. And then fourth, right, there's basically managing our state. And this is something which can sound kind of like a soft skill, and maybe there's a soft skill side to it, but at the end of the day, there are always complex, frustrating things going on in the world, around us, in life, surprises, and so on. And it's not to deny any of that. It's not to hide from any of that. It's not to rose tint any of that. But it is to say that, can I find a way to still get things done in spite of that? To keep, whether it's keeping myself chipper, keeping my morale up, keeping myself sort of moving forward. What do I have to do and think and position in my thinking to make sure that I'm, no matter what else is happening around me, the things that I can control, I'm doing something about. And it's this side, again, to usable intelligence, to, if we are sort of, if you all know the never-ending story, sort of wallowing in the swamps of sadness side to things, and obviously there's a degree to which, by all means, get professional help with things. That's not what this is about. This is about just a more general, everyday experience for some people's live situation where, okay, can I handle the things that need to be handled, but also, at the same time, keep myself clear enough in mind and in thought that I can productively move forward, do the things I mean to do, finish the projects I mean to finish. And so the reason I bring up usable intelligence today, something I'm thinking about again, is this thread connecting my productivity material, self-command, the things I work with even on my youth clients, about trying to frame how we go about questions and learning technical skills very differently than maybe what they're used to in a classroom setting, reading assignments and paper and homework. So that's very kind of project-based learning. And obviously at the home team side of scale, where again, one of the first things people kind of encounter in our groups is that they're in a much different context than if you go into a job, someone's telling you what to do and telling you to do this, telling you to lead this project and so on. In our groups, it's very much has to be driven by helping people learn through experience and practicing the skill of, I can identify a task that needs to be done. I can figure out the task to do. I can kind of assign that to myself in an important sense. If I need help, I can turn to help, or I can reach out or find or gather others for help. That these are such pivotal, universal skills applicable certainly outside of game development in the general lot of life. And even out of, speaking of that proportion and project, there's this other kind of element buried in there about assigning ourselves or recognizing the percent completeness or polish or perfection that each respective part should get, right? That there's a range of 100% thorough and 0% didn't do it at all. That is the right balance for each individual detail, which for many things, I say detail because they're in the background, because they're minor, because they have to get done, but they don't necessarily justify the infinite amount of time you could pour into doing it perfectly if it's a little detail in the background, right? The zipper on the jacket, the rock off there in the corner. And seeing that sort of proportionality is important because, again, if we come from only learning in classroom settings or even some workplace trainings, sometimes we're kind of conditioned to where they're only feeding us contrived little problems that can be handled perfectly, that we can get 100% on, rather than these more interesting problems where in order to build a thing that didn't exist and make it come into existence, whether that thing is a game, is a company, is a book, is a whatever you want to build, then it winds up making these complicated trade-offs of, okay, well, if I give a little bit less attention to these pieces because I figure out that these aren't as important, I can refocus energy on other things. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about usable intelligence. Anyway, as this common thread, I might continue exploring it further. Might see what else I can do with this, taking it, maybe drawing some better lines to help connect the constellations of the material I've built over the years. But want to share the thought today for usable intelligence. Curious if in the comments you have thoughts to share on what you have found to be your experiences with types of understanding that have been particularly useful to you. Whether or not they're in contrast to what you found in school lessons and workplace trainings, including if they came from those, and I'm interested in those too. Curious to hear your thoughts on it, see if I can maybe better incorporate those back into what I'm doing. But that's the thought for the day. Thanks everybody for being here. Catch you next time. Bye for now.